Everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Barbara and it's absolutely fabulous meeting you. As usual, I am putting on my shoes in the car because my mom told me that if I keep on driving with my high heels, I'm going to mess up my shoes, especially these suede ones because it's suede, so like every time I change gears it's gonna be rubbing against the floor and I'm gonna finish the material. So I will continue to start every vlog with taking off my favorite pair of slippers and exchanging them for my favorite pair of heels. Today is a very exciting day because I am here for Motlatšo's launch of the Motlatšo Foundation, and yeah, I don't think you guys have officially met Motlatšo, and so I'm gonna be inserting a video of her and what her organization, well, not really what her organization is about, but I don't know if you remember the video that I dropped on the 8th of March, International Women's Day, with all different kinds of women from different countries of origin, descendants, and speaking words of encouragement to the women watching that video. So Motlatšo was actually one of the women that I interviewed, and I met her about 2 months ago through the small group at church. So for those of you who have no idea what a small group is, I facilitate a group of women every single week, and it's young adult women, so anyone from their teenage years up until the age of like 30. Well, I mean, if you're older you can come, but if you're you're definitely gonna be amongst like very young girls. And so Motlatšo was one of the girls that joined, and we kind of built a relationship from there. So obviously when I had the International Women's Day video, she was one of the people that I invited to come on and just speak to the diversity of our country. So she is a mother of a beautiful boy with Down syndrome, and basically she advocates for children with Down syndrome and other intellectual diseases being seen as equal. And sorry, it's really hard to put on like shoes and speak at the same time. Yeah, so she's a very big advocate for them being seen as equal and being included in activities, whether it be educational, whether it be in recreational spaces, and how they can best be tailored to make sure that it's inclusive for every single child, no matter what their need is. And so today is the launch of that foundation. Officially, I'm at the Randburg Clinic School, and yeah, let's go inside, greet some people, meet some people, and then I guess you'll just figure out what the agenda for the day is as the day goes by.
Look! Oh, it is! All the way from the Pretoria. Do you understand? The Pretoria. What are you doing in Bryanston?
I'm here to support my friend. I'm here.
Guys, I was walking from this place. Let me turn the camera. I was walking down like the path from my car to come in, and I'm walking. I'm like, is that Salem? But I'm like, no, it's fine. This is Johannesburg. Like, I don't expect to see people I know in Joburg. So, is it World Down Syndrome Day today? I saw she said something like that. Your eyes. She said something like that on her status, and I was like, I did not know that.
I did not know that either. If it is,
all we know is like human rights.
Double check.
Yeah,
Human Rights Day.
I know that much nationally, but internationally,
Like, something else.
it should be. Really, I didn't know that. Yes.
Your hairstyle has to go to the left.
I didn't know that. So, banna obapina kamo, basadi kamo. Wow. What's the reason? There's no. Okay.
Good job, everybody.
So, the event hasn't quite started. She still has her interview with the NCA right now. And so after that interview, I think that's when we're going to get started. For now, we're handing out these little ribbons and pinning it on each and every guest that walks in. So, yeah.
On the arm.
Look who it is.
My grandmother had one of these things that they call spaza shops. I believe we all are acquainted with those, right? And so, growing up, I used to visit my grandmother all the time. And she knew that every single time I'd be visiting her, I'd be coming in and changing all the prices for her spaza shop. So everyone in the community knew that every time that grandchild is there, she's going to be changing all the pricing. And at the end of the day, I would take all my spoils and give my grandmother what's due to her, and everyone would go part their own way.
That is so
now,
funny.
there came a day once where, so my grandmother was a diabetic, and she would constantly eat a lot of sweets, and she would chuck these little plastic papers under the cash register. And one of the days I just had an idea. I thought, let me actually do something with these papers. I don't like them just sitting around here. And so I took those little plastic papers and I joined them together with a rock. I'm 6 years old and I'm on a mission. And here I am joining these little papers together, and they formed this big, colorful, beautiful mat. And I went to her with this big mat and I say to her, Gran, look what I've made. And she says to me, wow, that's beautiful. And then she says, is it for me? And I say, well, it is for you, but actually it's for sale. And then she goes on to say, okay, how much is it? She pulls out her little sack of coins. She's ready to give me some money. And I say to her, 600 Rand. And my grandmother looks at me and thinks, a 6-year-old asking me for 600 Rand with resources that she got from me? How does that work? And, she did not even question me. She immediately gave me the 600 Rand at 6 years old. She paid me what I believed I was worth in that moment. And I believe that was the day that my grandmother set the trajectory for who I have become today. Because I have become a person that has come to believe that I have value to offer to society. And I've become a person who has come to believe that society must value me. And so I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that that's what we're here to do today. And with that, let me officially welcome you all to the Olusegun Kalushi Foundation for Children with Down Syndrome and Intellectual Disabilities. Let's give it a round of applause.
And when we read the story of Matthew 18:10, we get to see that how Jesus loved children. Those children and those adults, of course, they require special needs. Jesus will stop everything he was doing and attend to them. That showed the importance of how those people were in our world today. In a world where we live in, we seem to look away at those people. We seem to focus on the ones that look well, that look like us, that dress like us. But Jesus was not like that. Here come
It was in August 2017 when I received a call from one of Daddy's friends, a young girl that I also raised. And she said, Mama, Daddy's going to call you. Please be nice. I did not understand what she meant because me and my daughter had a very open relationship. I didn't know that for us to have any kind of a conversation, we needed a mediator. But I immediately thought, and that was the thought that time, that I think she bumped her car. And immediately after I dropped Kat's phone, an SMS came. I asked you to forward me that SMS. I don't have it anymore. But it was Daddy who was informing me that she was pregnant. At that time, she was at the University of Free State, having passed with 5 distinctions. Wow. And I did not expect anything less than her coming home with a degree in law. And I immediately remembered how would have my mother felt, because it was at the same age when I did not gather the courage. I left my mother a note under her pillow that, Mama, I'm pregnant. I was at this age, that was in 1998 when I got pregnant with that. And immediately, empathy kicked in. I booked a flight back home and took her to the gynecologist just to make sure that the baby was fine. Fast forward into 2018. That was a very difficult year. It was a very difficult year because over and above having to have a daughter who was home pregnant and depressed, I was facing a separation. Over and above the fact that I was facing a separation with my ex-husband, I had 2 boys, one of them is sitting at the chair at the back, who were very frustrated. My parents who were separated, a sister who was depressed home all the time. And Comrade Bandile, it was a year of the provincial conference of the ANC in Limpopo in 2018, where I was standing for a position. And Comrade Nomanto will tell you what it feels to be a woman who says, I want to be the deputy secretary of the province. I don't care who's supporting me. I'm sharing with you this information, so I give you the background why we are here today and events that led us, as I am going to challenge all of us to understand why we need to support this movement. Daddy came back home 2018, and that was the last time I saw my daughter smile, was when she left for Blom in August. But she came back and I never saw my daughter smile again. I remember it was in April when I was going with her to all her checkups. We arrived at the gynecologist. He spent some time with us and he said that he needed to transfer, or he needed that to go see a fetus specialist because they are seeing some challenges with all. I think she will explain that. And I immediately, the following day, I was supposed to present a budget speech. So I asked the driver to bring her to Centurion because I did not think it was such a hectic thing. I just thought they were just going to check if she's fine and she's going to come back home because she was still 32 weeks pregnant. So Mom had to do her MEC job because the following day I was supposed to present a budget speech. So I said, go with the driver, let me finalize and make sure that everything is printed. Let me go to budget speech and I'll see you when you come back. So while I was there with my team doing the last touch-ups, I get a call from Daddy and she starts crying and says, they say I must give birth. I did not get that. Immediately I had to get into the car, forgot that it was a budget speech, drove to Centurion, and fast forward, Daddy as a child, Oleso was born. And I remember 3 days later, when the doctor said to me, she's seeing some marks and symptoms that are telling that Ole could be Down syndrome. And I think, Comrade Bandile, you need to maybe to touch on that because we thought that we have advanced in science for us to be able to see before a child is born that there could be Down syndrome. Or maybe God wanted it to happen that way. Because we didn't know. We found out 3 days later. We found out the doctor hinted that to me 3 days after Ola was born. And they said they were still going to run tests and the tests did confirm that indeed Oluseho was Down syndrome. And my daughter died emotionally. As a mother, you see your child dying every day. Having to raise a child with a Down syndrome, but she is not there. I'm not going to be very detailed because I think I'm going to be emotional. But what I'm trying to say, MEC, is that we need to make sure that we provide support for mothers, parents, and guardians that are raising children with Down syndrome. Because 30 at her age, having to deal with the shame and the guilt of being pregnant at that age, now having to give a birth, what is the word I'm looking for, like emergency Caesar. Now the child is born and the child must do kidney operation in 3 days. Now the child after kidney operation in 3 days, now the child is Down syndrome. I think that was a lot for an 18-year-old. And she sloped into depression to such an extent that I lived in perpetual fear as a mom. Because it was not just depression, she was suicidal. 3 occasions I was called because Daddy attempted to do this and that. I asked her to share this so that you can understand that when we are with Mother's Day teacher at schools, at Banabatari, think about the mothers that are at home, what they are dealing with, their frustrations, the guilt, the stigma. Daddy went into a bottle, she drank alcohol. I raised that in the ways of the Lord. She was not drinking. She confirmed that to me, that she only started drinking after she gave birth. She drank every day. And because as moms, you want to be naive, my helper one day called me and said, Mama, come see. And she picked up the bed and bottles and bottles and bottles of alcohol. Daddy bumped cars every other 2 weeks in big roads like Allendale. You come, you're called by police, you're called by neighbors, you're called by security that she bumped the Interpol. And that was the life that we lived for 4 full years. And the reason why I'm here and I'm supporting her, I'm not just supporting the foundation, I'm supporting the fact that God has resurrected my daughter. Because this foundation has given her a new meaning. I've seen her smile again. I've seen her woke up with so much excitement. I've seen her looking forward. I've seen her jumping down. And that was the daughter that I took to university that is now back. So, ladies and gentlemen, Daddy said, Mama, we walked this journey with Ole. She's going to take us through the journey. And I saw the struggles. I was more privileged because my mom had a medical aid. My mom was working. My mom could get me a driver to take me there. My mom could. What about a mother in Alexander at Deep Slot?
Yeah.
The schools are very expensive. So Daddy said, Mama, I want to start a foundation. So Oluseho is the boy's name, Kalushi, because he was born on the 6th of April, the day of Kalushi. That's why it's called Oluseho Kalushi. And today we've invited all of you not to come to be witnesses, but to come and pledge your support to this foundation. It might not be you. You might know somebody who can. You might know somebody who has a therapist, friend. It does not even have to be monetary all the time. There's a lot that all of us, we can contribute toward this foundation to make it a success, so that children who are not as privileged as Ole, who are still hidden, can get help, can get therapy. Ole is working like this because he went to the physio. There are kids now where that is teaching. They are 6 years, Ole is 5 years, they cannot walk. So Ole was able to have early intervention of going to the creche, or going to therapy. He's able to say mama now because he's going to speech therapy and all that. So I am inviting all of us to say that Oluseho Kalushi Foundation is our foundation, all of us. And you are invited to this journey that is going to change their lives. Children with Down syndrome can live normal lives. They can marry, they can be the best in athletics, they can have businesses. But it's going to take all of us to contribute and hold that by a hand and say that you can do this. who are going to support you. Thank you very much, Paul.
Awesome. Now we are going to proceed with our program, with the next item on our program. We are going to be having a word, but Msanda Womatira. Let's welcome Msanda onto the stage.
Thank you. The issue of awareness is what I think is critical in society. People are not aware of these conditions. Everybody will tell you, no, it's your ancestors, it's spirits, somebody is doing witchcraft on the family, you are cursed. You didn't do 1, 2, 3 when you were pregnant, your mother should have gone to the mountain, should have gone to the graveside, all those kinds of issues that are not really scientific. We're not saying that we should not do traditional rituals, but we should not blame everything on that when we are faced with problems. It's better to deal with the problems that we have.
Before I stand here as a founder and a pioneer of an incredible movement, I stand first and foremost as a mother of a son with Down syndrome. A mother who was once hopeless, desperately destitute, and in need of a glimmer of light, even if it was just a flickering one. The journey to the making of Olesero Galushi Foundation began almost 5 years ago. At my 7th month of pregnancy, Olesero began to show signs of distress already in my womb. My gynae told us that his kidneys have swollen up, and it is advised that we see a fetus specialist, and we did so. On the 4th of April, we drove down to Pretoria, and little did I know that I was set to give birth already. Little did I know what lay ahead of us changed the entire trajectory of my life forever. We spent the day with the doctor doing different evaluations and scans, and at the end of it all, leading into the late hours of the evening, she called me and gave me options. She relayed that firstly, I do not have enough amniotic fluid to continue the pregnancy, but being that as it may, the baby has not fully developed to deliver. However, also, because he has kidney complications, should I delay to deliver, I run the risk of giving birth to a stillborn baby. At merely 18 years old, I was already faced with life and death decisions to make. My mother was still MEC in Limpopo at that time. She was due to present her budget speech the following day, and she was not there with me. I then told the doctor, let us deliver. I went to sit as the doctor was making arrangements for me at Unitas Hospital. It became overwhelming very quickly. My life began to flash right in front of my eyes. As I sat, I began to cry. The driver with me at the time did not even know what to say, so he called my mother that something is wrong and she needs to come down immediately. Only once I arrived at the hospital, I managed to relay to her what the doctor had said. I was then admitted in the night and given steroids, and it was the same for the next day. On Friday, the 6th of April, 2018, I gave birth to my beautiful boy, weighing 1.6 kg, diagnosed with bilateral hydronephrosis, which was basically a swelling of both kidneys as a result of blocked valves. I was assigned a nephrologist, My birth was really touch and go. I do not even recall hearing a cry because he was immediately put in the incubators and taken to the NICU. Only later at night, I went to see him. And how the mind works, I did not even slightly imagine there could be anything wrong other than just waiting for him to get physically better and we go home. Only recently did I learn that everyone around me knew of Ole's possible diagnosis except me. And that was my mother's instruction to the father and to my family. She had informed the doctors that I just had a traumatic birth and the doctor should wait before she tells me that Ole is showing markers of Down syndrome. However, that was short-lived because my family had to leave and go back to Limpopo, and the doctor just had me to give updates to. A few days later, he had his first operation, which was basically they put the bladder outside of his abdomen, so he just peed freely. For those of you that have changed my son's diaper would know how the operation looked like. A day or two later, she came to me to give me updates on how Ole is doing. She said to me that he's showing quite a few signs of having Down syndrome, but very quickly also said it was just an observation and tests would have to be done. And I hung on that. I hung on the false hope that it could not be true. I mean, I was young, this is my first child, there's no history of disability in our family. So I believed. In fact, I was convinced that the doctor made a mistake. Meanwhile, I had already started searching markers of Down syndrome that they spoke of. And like I said, how powerful the mind is, I began to see them. I no longer saw my beautiful boy just waiting to get better to go home. I saw a boy labeled with disability from birth. And it broke my heart. But still then, I believed that the doctor was wrong. The wait for the result was lengthy and dreadful, even though it was just for a few days. On one evening, as I went to see Ole, the doctor came, and like usual, she updated me with Ole's health. And the challenges kept increasing. He had a congenital birth defect too. So he was born with a VSD. At 8 months, he did an open heart surgery, like Dr. Bandile said, that some of the kids are born with different defects. And however, nothing could have prepared me for what was coming. She said to me, the results are back, and we have confirmed a third copy of chromosome 21 in Ole's host cells. And unfortunately, that means that your son has trisomy 21. She was saying that I couldn't hear anything anymore. All I heard was just screeching, loud and piercing noise, piercing sound in my ear, as though vital machines had just stopped. And in essence, really, that is what happened. Other doctors and nurses began to come to comfort me, to cuddle around me as though Olesewa had just died. And that is what it began to feel like. The child that I expected and I prayed for was not there. I quickly ran out and I called my mother and I let out a heartbreaking cry. I did not have to speak. My mom knew that she needed to drive down. I cried for 8 hours non-stop until I started gasping for air to breathe. They called everyone in the family, my grandmother, and I was crying, my uncle, and I was crying. They were praying on the phone and I was crying. They called Ole's nephrologist and I was still crying. I was inconsolable. until I passed out on my mother's lap. What happened from there, I believe, was the beginning of an era. I felt buried, but in retrospect, though, I was only planted. When I closed my eyes, it felt like death. Everyone felt like they lost me, and they did. I fell into severe chronic depression for 4 years. 4 years, I was severely depressed, diagnosed with postnatal depression, diagnosed with chronic depression, diagnosed with anxiety, seasonal depression, you name it. And when my mother said I used to drink, I literally, for me, I just wanted to not feel anymore. I had a child, I had to be a mother to my child, but I didn't want to go through that journey. My friends will tell you that I was the life of the party. When I arrive, that's when the party starts, because they know that there's no ending to this. However, I'm grateful for the support structure around me. My family, my mother who carried me in that time, carried me and Ole. We took him to therapies. We found him the best doctors, the best education. And today we even sometimes forget that he has Down syndrome because of the great help that we received. But we had the resources. We still struggled to the point that for the betterment of Olesero, we decided to move to Gauteng to find better facilities, opportunities, and little did we know that it would be just the same struggle. And I began to ask myself, what more of the next disadvantaged family, or a mother in need of support, or even parents in need of services? What are we doing as a community, as government, as civil society, to improve the quality of life of children with Down syndrome? And that was the birth of Olesero Kalushi Foundation. Statistics show us that Down syndrome is the most common genetic cause of intellectual disability. Evidence suggests that live birth prevalence is high in South Africa, with 1.33 to 1.88 per 1,000 births in 2 urban areas, and 2.1 per 1,000 in rural areas. This is why we formed this foundation, because there is great need to raise awareness of people living with Down syndrome and advocate for the inclusion and rights of people living and children living with Down syndrome, to improve their quality of life and promote the idea that they have the right to live with independence, with dignity, with security, as valued and participating citizens in welcoming societies. To also integrate regulations and policies that foster their inclusion in medical care, in education, in therapies, and all the way to employment. We have an ongoing mission to bring South Africa in line with world trends in the field of Down syndrome, and to see to it that the UN Convention of Rights of Children with Disabilities is recognized and honored in all spheres. As we celebrate Down Syndrome Day today, a date added into the calendar by the United Nations, the theme for this year is "With Us, Not For Us." May we remember that people living with Down syndrome are not just objects of charity, where they rely on people for support. We need to move to a more human rights-based approach, change the narrative, change the social construct, where they are seen as people that have the right to be treated fairly and have the same opportunities and freedoms as everyone else, so they are able to realize their life aspirations and reach their fullest potential. Because after all, it's just an extra chromosome. As I close, a poem is written by Emily Kinsley. She says, having a child with special needs is It's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a guidebook and make wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may even learn some handy Italian phrases. It's all very exciting. After a few days of eager anticipation, the day arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Perplexed, you argue and say, "What do you mean? I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamt of going to Italy." But there's been a change in the flight. You landed in Holland, and there you must stay. But the important thing is, you're not taken to a horrible, disgusting, and filthy place filled with pestilence and famine and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go on and buy a new guidebook and learn a new language and meet an entire group of new people. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy, but as you catch your breath and you look around, you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips, and Holland has ribbons. Even though everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they are all bragging about what a wonderful time they are having there. And for the rest of your life, you say, "I wish I was in Italy. That's where I was supposed to go. That's where I planned." The pain of that will never, ever go away because it is a significant loss. If you spend the rest of your life moaning you didn't get to go to Italy, you may never enjoy the beauty of Holland. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Holland. My name is Motlatšo, the founder of Olusegun Galushi Foundation, and I will be your tour guide. Thank you.
Recently had a meeting with the Presidential Working Group on Disability. Oh my God, I mean, even all of us as ministers were very, I think, overwhelmed, I must say, at the challenges that confront the country and also confront us as government. Which makes me really appreciate a lot the work that we are doing and planning to do. Because on our own as government, there's no way we can even touch the surface of the challenges and things that needs to be done. It's only through partnerships, through energies from different angles that we can be able to deal with this big task of ensuring that indeed we respect, we promote and uphold the rights of children, of people with special needs. There is no way any other, even the civil society or NGOs can't do it on their own. And that's why you really need your parents, you need society, you need business. That's where we really, the message of a village needed to raise children. They are so special, and that's where I think all of us as villagers are called upon to do it.
And most of the mental, intellectual, neurological conditions which fall under the mental disabilities are the ones that are left behind, that are hidden. What are the actual? We know the needs, but there are actuals. What are the actual needs of persons with disabilities as a parent of a child with a disability? And also knowing and being an expert in the field of this particular disability that you're in. If we are serious about dealing with mental health in the country, we need to be ready to learn.
Yes.
So we must be teachable. All of us. We're not experts. We must all be teachable.
And I'm hopeful that once our department and the Olusegun Kalushi Foundation collaborate, we will be able to make a greater impact. So I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, for inviting me. So we are here, we will work with you. Matonzela will take your number so that we can have a meeting with the team and see what do we do to ensure that Kalushi Foundation becomes a better foundation that will help us as government in terms of our collaboration and the needs of the people with disability.
So the lamb, like lamb meat is more. I'm here for the fish. They said it was cutting and the cutting so that I'm taking the fish. Take it to the drink anymore. Happy or not. Something that already comes in small plate on my nose. Yeah. Trying to say, talking like, oh, it's gonna fall apart.
We know my makeup. I only know my I'm like, I quickly have some stuff that I need to make sure is set for Botshabelo social media. So guys, content creators are the only people that work. Okay, maybe not the only people, but content creators should definitely be classified as essential workers, because even on public holidays, we have to work so we can entertain. Even on public holidays like Human Rights Day, I need to make sure that I am checking out what's happening with Botshabelo. Is anyone DMing or saying anything? Because at the end of the day, when you run an NPO, you have to be alive on important days like Human Rights Day, when we celebrate the very heart of the work that we are doing. So, you know, no work for the... I almost said no rest for the wicked. Am I wicked? Although if I am being 100% honest, I'm probably going to see my friends after this. But before I see my friends, I need to make sure that I get a crack lacking. And I work because mighty warrior sana. So today was a successful day. I think the event went so well, and I'm just so proud of Motlatšo. I think hearing her story again and really hearing the intricate details of what she went through as a teenage mom first and foremost, and then secondly as now a young mom who is facing and navigating raising a child with special needs, where resources aren't necessarily available, not necessarily from her side, but in terms of the country and what we've provided with our infrastructure for children like that. I think there were so many important conversations that were had, and I think it also made me realize just how far we have to go. I think we take for granted, in as much as yes, our educational system is not perfect, granted, I think my eyes were open to how much more for the child with special needs, how much more for the kid who has intellectual disabilities, the lack of special schools with trained teachers, etc., to be able to take care of those children adequately. When will we even get to the point where we speak about integrating them into normal schools and finding ways for children with intellectual disabilities to be in the exact same classroom as children without intellectual disabilities, or undiagnosed, I guess. Because also when you're in the public schooling system, you almost realize a lot of things. I think a lot of the times, especially in primary school, teachers would like recognize certain things with certain kids and like flag them, or it would only be diagnosed later on in high school to say, oop, actually you have ADHD, or you see it only in your adulthood. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. I think even just in the conversation of stigmatization around children with special needs and people with disabilities and special needs, I think it really just clicked in my head for the very first time that, do you know how deep it is that in South Africa already we
have a culture, especially in the rural communities, and I would know this particularly from my grandmother's village, as someone whose family has had very I don't even know how to call them, pivotal, life-changing situations that happened in the family as a result of mental health, and mental health that was genetically passed on or hereditary. What's the English? You know what I'm saying? And having seen the impact of that, and when the doctor speaks to what's happening, why it's happening, you can kind of see it in other family members and realize that there are actually quite a lot of your village family members who have gone undiagnosed and suffer from the same disease, but we've been told that they were bewitched, or we've been told that they are just crazy, they've gone completely crazy. And that stigma means that they hide people who have mental health, because guys, it's so deep, because I can literally think of uncles and people who live in the back rooms of the yard simply because you've got a mental health issue and the community knows, but you're hidden, you're not a part of society, and no one speaks to you, no one sees you, no one listens to what you have to say. And so yeah, it was a little bit deep, because I realized that for some people, yes, it's an element of they're ashamed of their family members, but for some people it's a measure of protection. I mean, with my cousin, he's got a best friend who is living with albinism, right? And he was kidnapped on his way to work on an Uber one day, and I remember when he came back and relayed the story of what happened to him after they kidnapped him. They kidnapped him, fine, they raped him, a lot happened, and before they set him free, there was just back and forth and conversation about whether or not they were going to take his body parts for muthi. So I can see how, like, in some communities, when you hide a child who's living with albinism, especially if you're living in a rural community, it may just be out of a place of protection and not necessarily fear of judgment, but just fear of your loved one being harmed because people want to use them for rituals and all sorts of stuff. And so yeah, there's a very long way to go in terms of just educating people around special needs, and what that looks like, what it actually means from a scientific point of view, and not necessarily witchcraft and all the other theories that we've come up with as to why people are born the way that they are born. And then after we've dealt with that, there's still the matter of integrating them into society, integrating them into schools, into recreational spaces, making them safe and making them, you know, just make it make sense for someone who has special needs to be able to coexist in that society, because at the end of the day, they are people, they are humans, and they do have rights. And I think I'm so glad that I was able to go there and be a part of that conversation, just be able to listen, because now it's given me a lot to think about, just even in terms of the privileges that I have that I don't necessarily realize I have. So yeah, I'm chilling right now. I'm at a place I'm at a place, working, getting some stuff done for Botabelo, and then also for my personal social media. And then I will probably go have dinner with my friend and their family. So yeah, that might happen. We'll see how we feel. But I hope that you had a very insightful time chilling with me today, and going to this event with me. I hope that it opened up your eyes to something that you might not have necessarily seen, and gave you just a little something to think about. So we'll chat in the next video. Hopefully it'll be more fun. It'll be a lot more fun. Go back to our regularly scheduled program. But I'm like, first of all, okay, if I'm being completely honest, I was very surprised at the invitation that Motlatšo had sent out. And I think this year particularly, I've been privileged enough to have so many invitations to just different events around women empowerment, around just empowerment as a whole, for whether it be for people with disabilities or for women or for children, whatever the case may be. I think a question that always rises up on the inside of me is like, why? Like, why me? Why am I being invited? But I think the more of these events that I attend, the more I realize what a privilege it is to even be in rooms where these conversations are being had. So yeah, if you ever have an opportunity to go and learn something that you were not always exposed to, I encourage you to do it because you will not regret it, and it definitely is necessary if we are going to be a inclusive society, that every single person gets to hear on it, gets to speak on it, and just gets to be a part of it. So yeah, see you guys next time.